And in an exclusive interview to DD News' correspondent Sidhant Sibal, External Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid said that the visit has helped both Indian and Chinese leadership to know each other pretty well.
The Chinese Premier is on his first ever trip to India. With me, External Affairs Minister Salman Khurshid. So, yesterday the Chinese Premier had a talk with the Indian leadership. What transpired?
Well, he spoke about it today publicly, and he met with the press yesterday. Essentially, it was a getting to know each other opportunity. New leadership has taken over in China. We expect in the normal course their leadership remains for about 10 years, one generation. So for the next 10 years, who would be leading China, both in terms of President, Prime Minister and other ministers? This is an opportunity to get to know them, to get to feel their style, their priorities, how they like to work, and to see how we can match that. But there was content as well. There was content about economics, there was content about how we move forward on our historical border disagreement. There was content also about collaborating in international fora. So there was some very solid content.
On border issue, what were the basic points which were discussed? Was the Ladakh incursion discussed?
No, it was discussed and it was not discussed. The principle was discussed. The issue specifically was not discussed because it was felt that issue is over, that we have resolved it. But why it happened needs to be examined, and we've agreed to examine. Also to see whether we need to improve the mechanisms by which it was resolved. Should the mechanism be strengthened? Can it be revised? Can be reviewed, etc.? That the Prime Minister had said categorically the special representatives will do.
So on economics, trade deficit is a major area of concern. Did the Chinese leadership give any sort of commitment or assurance on?
Yes, they said we'll address it, and they said let the commerce ministers meet right away and begin to address it.
So, last question, the Chinese leadership also called for a handshake across the Himalayas. So is it a new beginning?
Didn't you see me shake the Prime Minister's hand and say, this is the handshake across the Himalayas? See, once there is a handshake, then the height of the mountain doesn't stand in the way. The height of the mountain helps us elevate our relationships to a much higher level.
Thank you so much. That was the External Affairs Minister talking exclusively to Doordarshan News. Sidhant Sibal, DD News, New Delhi.
All right, and now let's go across to our newsroom and talk to Sidhant Sibal live. Sidhant, let's take a little forward your exclusive conversation with Salman Khurshid. In fact, 4 questions. You really put, all that in perspective. The discussions that went between the leadership of the two sides, from trade deficit to resolving border issues. But what I really want to know from you is specifically the question about when he says, in principle, it was discussed, but the issue is over forever, but both sides will examine why it really happened.
Well, right now, India and China both are willing to forgo the past and move forward. Today, when the Chinese Premier spoke with the business leaders, with the ambassadors, and where Foreign Minister was there also, he talked about cooperation, which was a key point. He said how India and China can forge together a golden future, a golden age for Asia. He used lots of florid language. He quoted Gandhi, he quoted Manmohan Singh, he quoted Confucius. Let me just quote one of his quote which he used. He said Gandhi once said that India and China are both travelers. And he also quoted Manmohan Singh saying that you cannot choose your neighbors, you might choose your enemies, but not your neighbors. So in a sense, China and India need to work together. He drew together the potential both the countries had. He said that both the countries have more similarity than differences. He said we are a billion+ population. India is a service superpower. China is a manufacturing superpower. India needs infrastructure. China can build that very easily. So India and China needs to collaborate. He also said that India was his first trip abroad, and then he goes to Pakistan, Switzerland and Germany, but he chose India to emphasize that how important India is for China.
Also, the Chinese leadership perhaps have made a very strong pitch in terms of increasing the investments in India and help also Indian products more access to Chinese market. In terms of economics, as far as two countries are concerned, the transactions on economics line, how do you see that really developing, taking a cue from what Chinese Premier did talk about this morning?
With Chinese Premier is coming a large business delegation. The Chinese Premier will go to Mumbai in the evening, and there at 6 o'clock he's going to meet other business leaders. So from that you can get an indication that how important that business relation that China wants. And of course, in recent years we have seen trade becoming more important in a way that diplomacy, trade is the route to diplomacy. Forging closer relations through trade. We have seen the same thing India and Pakistan doing, and same thing India and China doing. Of course, the trade right now, he expressed concerns today when he was meeting with the business leaders that the trade relations between the two nations are just $66 billion. India and China both want the trade relations between each other being $100 billion by 2015. Hopefully, with this rate, it is not possible. But of course, if we have a good relation, if we continue the trade, we can have a $100 billion target. Of course, a real apprehension in Indian business community, of course, and the Indian government is the big trade deficit. India has the largest trade deficit with China, and of course, India and China yesterday when they met, the leadership of both the countries met, they expressed concerns how it is a disadvantage to India. Of course, China has said that China wants to put more investment in India, and of course telecom sector, number of agreements were signed. Huawei, which is the biggest telecom company in the world, wants to invest in the country. So of course trade relations are the way forward. It's only up to the both countries how they make sure that there's an easy business environment, investment climate between both the countries.
How is the industry reacting to such positive statements coming from the Chinese leadership? How industry's reaction? How are they looking forward to these trade ties and economic ties with China?
Well, of course, industry is all positive. China is a nation with a huge potential, and India, of course, is a nation with huge potential. Both the business community recognize this, and they want to invest in both the countries. Of course, I met with one of the former ambassador, Lalit Mansingh, is former foreign secretary ambassador to US and High Commissioner to UK. He actually compared today's speech of the Chinese Premier with Nehru's speech. He said it was very optimistic. He talked about India, China, how they can forge together to form a huge potential for billions of people living in both the countries. So of course, a big thumbs up from every sector they're sitting, from ambassadors, from the industry, from all the people.
All right, Sidhant, Sibal, thank you very much for those inputs. Today's, of course, Chinese Premier addressed the industry's leaders at FICCI. Thank you. And